Here we are going to solve some basic logarithmic and exponential functions. We have 3 steps. Isolate, we want to get either the exponential or the log on one side by itself. We're going to convert it, and then we're going to solve. So looking at letter A, we have 4 to the x plus 3. We're solving for x up in the exponent, which means we're solving an exponential. Our first step is to get it on one side by itself. We already have that 4 to the x plus 3 on one side by itself, so it's already isolated. Now we are going to convert it to a log. We're going to use the base 4 on both sides. Log base 4 of 4 to the x plus 3 equals log base 4 of 80. That way on the left, log base 4 and 4 will cancel. We get x plus 3 equals log base 4 of 80. So now we isolated, we converted from an exponential to a log, and our last step is to solve for x. So to get x by itself, we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So we'll get log base 4 of 80 minus 3. That's our exact answer. We're also going to find a rounded answer to the second decimal place, the hundredths. So I'm going to grab my calculator, use math alpha A. We'll change it to log base 4 of 80 minus 3. Rounding to 2 decimal places, it's 0.16. There's an exact answer and a rounded answer. So we isolated, we converted, and we solved. So we're going to move down 1 to 32 plus e to the x equals 40. We're going to go through these same 3 steps. I want to solve for x. It's stuck up in the exponent, so I'm going to isolate that exponential term by subtracting 32 from both sides. I get e to the x equals 40 minus 32 is 8. So I isolated. Now I'm going to convert. I want to use the base of the exponential to convert. So this is base e, so I'm going to take ln of both sides. Ln of e to the x equals ln of 8. Ln and e cancel, so I'll just get x equals ln of 8. That's the exact answer. I'm going to get a rounded answer by plugging into my calculator. Ln of 8, and rounding to 2 decimal places is 2.08. There's an exact answer and a rounded answer. I'm going to keep going down to the next exponential. I want to follow my 3 steps. I want to isolate, convert, and solve. So first thing, I want to get that 10 to the x term on one side by itself, so I'm going to isolate. I'm going to divide both sides by 15. So I'm going to need to grab my calculator and do 300 divided by 15, and that is 20. So I get 10 to the x equals 20. I've isolated. I have 10 to the x on one side by itself. My next step is to convert. So I'm going to take log base 10 of both sides. That's just the common log, log. So I'm going to take log of both sides. That's base 10. So I get an exact answer of x equals log of 20. And my rounded answer, I'm going to plug into my calculator, log of 20 is 1.30 to 2 decimal places. There is my exact answer and my rounded answer. So we just solved 3 exponential functions by converting them to logs. We isolated, converted to log, and then we solved for our final answer. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to solve some logarithms by isolating, converting to exponentials now, and solving. So I want to solve this 10 equals 4 plus 2 ln of x. So I need to get that ln of x on one side by itself. So I'm going to start by subtracting 4. So I get 6 equals 2 times ln of x. I don't quite have that ln on one side by itself. I have it multiplied with 2, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to get it by itself. So 3 equals ln of x. I just did a couple steps to isolate. Now I have the log on one side by itself. Now I'm going to convert to an exponential. So I'm going to use the base of the log. It's ln, so it's base e. I'm going to do e raised to both sides. E raised to the ln will cancel. So my exact answer is that x equals e cubed. And to find the decimal answer, I'm going to grab my calculator, round to 2 decimal places. E cubed is about 20.09. There's my exact and rounded answer. We isolated, we converted to an exponential using base e, and then we solved for x by itself by grabbing our calculator. We're going to do the same thing with the one below that. I want to isolate that logarithmic term. I have log base 3 of x minus 5, and I have a minus 2 outside the log term. So I'm going to move that 2 over by adding 2. That way on the left, I have log base 3 by itself. Log base 3 of x minus 5 equals 4 plus 2 is 6. Now I have the log on one side by itself. And so I'm going to be done isolating and move on to converting. So to convert this, I'm going to use base 3 instead of base e this time. So I'm going to have 3 raised to the log base 3 of x minus 5 on the left and 3 to the 6th on the right. So 3 raised to the log base 3 will cancel. I get x minus 5. And I need to grab my calculator and figure out what is 3 to the 6th power. That is 729. So we isolated, we converted to an exponential. I rose 3 to the 6th on that side on the right. And now my last step is to solve. So I need to get the x by itself. I'm going to add 5. X equals 729 plus 5 is 734. That is my exact and rounded answer. It's not a decimal. So we did our last step. We got x by itself. We solved. So I'm going to do those same 3 steps with the one below that. I have log of 6x plus 1.5 equals 2. I want to get that log on one side by itself. So I'm going to subtract the 1.5 over. That way I can isolate to start. So I get log of 6x equals 2 minus 1.5 is just going to be 0.5. We isolated, the log is by itself on the left now. And now we're going to convert to an exponential. So it's the common log, which means it's base 10. So my next step is to convert. I'm going to use base 10 of both sides. So 10 raised to the log of 6x, that way they cancel. And on the right, raise 10 to the 0.5, which I'm going to have to grab my calculator to figure out what that is. I have 6x equals 10 to the 0.5, which is a crazy decimal, so I'm going to actually just leave it as 10 to the 0.5. That way I can get my exact answer. I'm on my last step. We isolated, we converted to an exponential by using base 10. Our last step is to solve here. So I'm going to divide both sides by 6. My exact answer is a little bit different looking. It's 10 raised to the 0.5 divided by 6. And I can grab my calculator and plug that into round to 2 decimal places. For my rounded answer, it's about 0.53. We just solved 3 exponentials by converting them to logs, and then we solved 3 logs by converting them to exponentials.